it's really easy for us in the culture we've developed and grown and thrived within to a certain degree to pretend that things of the body are less important, that our connection to the earth is something we've sophisticated ourselves away from. The world is able to speak through us when we dance.
Hello, and welcome to the Brilliant Body Podcast, where we explore the art, science, and philosophy of reclaiming somatic intelligence. I'm Ali Mazet, host of the podcast, and a body-based practitioner for over 40 years. In this forum, my brilliant guests and I explore what it means to truly be rather than have a body. So join us and reclaim your body's brilliance. I met Jo Cobbett on her dance floor probably 25 years ago. And before I even say more, I'm just going to read Jo's little love letter to the world. She wrote, Jo Cobbett is a follower and lover of wonder, holding and creating windows into meeting ourselves while discovering beauty all through the journey. Portals have been through embodied movement and visual arts, play, curiosity, and an existential dialogue with the world. Jo is directly engaged with life through creating family and opportunities for self-exploration through her visual art, streamed poetry, and embodied movement offerings. Evolving through earlier partnership with Michael Mullen-Skelton, Jo has offered classes and workshops for 30 years in Los Angeles and around the world. Trained in bodywork at Esalen Institute, 5 Rhythms with Gabrielle Roth, Soul Motion with Vincent Marti, Open Floor with Kathy Altman, Lori Salzman, and Andrea Juan, among others. Her inspirations were deepened through playing in the field of improv with Paula Shaw, Camille Maureen, Ruth Zipporah. A primary influence in her life has been her trainings with Susan Harper and Continuum Montage, training and collaborations with Laura Sirolia, and ongoing fascination. Life is inspiring. There are thousands of influences, the whispers of the wind, conversations with water, and in every meeting. I have had countless teachers, and I'm grateful to have been continually inspired, including by Ali Mazet. And here she is to let us know more in person in this wonderful conversation with my dance guide, friend, poet, and world inspiration, Jo Cobbett. Hello, my dear.
Hello, my dear. Well, you look radiant.
I was going to say the same about you. How goes Los Angeles these days? I know you've been moving around because of the fires. What has that been like?
I'm really lucky because I only had to go away for a few days. I've actually moved around less since the fires because of the fires, because the fires made certain areas a lot less desirable. Places I would love to go hiking and being are closed off to me right now. So it's changed things a bit. But if you look, there are still places you can find to go and be welcomed with love by the earth. The earth's been really hungry for us to notice her. It's interesting because the human response to fires it's very self-centered. We were the ones who were attacked by the fire. They don't include the huge surrounding environment and the approach to trying to make it safe for us afterwards is to sanitize it, to sterilize it, to concretize it. Like all the rivers and waterways in Los Angeles have all been supported through concrete by the Army Corps of Engineers, and they're trying to do the same thing to all the areas that were hit by fire. They're trying to take down as many trees as possible in Altadena, even though the trees have survived. And the trees were fine. The trees weren't the fire starters or the fire problems. It was the houses that were the problems. But it's just a different approach. It's a very me-centric approach, and it's representative of why we've ended up where we have right now in the world.
Yeah.
A lot of me is I'm important, but nothing else really is quite as important as me and my security and my needs. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating to be in it. Yeah.
Fascinating and heartbreaking, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of heartbreak happening and a lot of confusion. A lot of people have something that they're calling fire brain right now.
Oh,
It's-
interesting.
Yeah, people who had endured the fires themselves were actually aware that they can't focus, they can't make decisions. This has
Mm.
been going on for over a month now, the trauma and the effect of it. But also, I think the global response to it, which was beautiful, but also almost overwhelming. You're in
Mm.
your own private shock and stunned space, and you realize you're also being spotlit by the world.
Mm. Mm.
One of the things that I see the most in beautiful Altadena, which is this Facebook group that I've been part of ever since I've been teaching there for a while, is to see the way they don't want to be looked at by the outside world. They don't want people driving by and saying, "Oh, we're so sorry this happened to you," if they don't live there. It's like when you've been really hurt, a dog, a cat, an animal, they're going to go for help, but they're also going to want to take time to have their energy come in for healing instead
Mm.
of having to go out to meet your expectations or your needs. And so I think that's a part of the issue is like, how do I heal myself from this? And also feel like everyone is watching and waiting for me to recover and to show up in a certain way. I know when I had my medical situations that I've gone through, they're mostly very much about me and my personal reality and how I'm meeting each day. And I'm happy to engage and I appreciate moments from strangers, but I don't want it to be continuous. And I may
Yeah.
not share the true integration I'm going through and the full depth of what I'm experiencing because I need that for myself. I'm healing. Yeah, I think you probably know that more than most people, right?
When you were talking, I was thinking back to what my experience was when my home burned down in 2018 and the disorientation. That's a word that is extremely pale and an understatement of what that experience was like. And I'm thinking about how people, if somebody dies, when my folks died, it was a similar thing where people who haven't experienced it or even who have are more likely to project their fear and their assumptions about going through that experience or that trauma or that tragedy. And I remember when one of my parents died and people would say, "Oh, you must be so sad." And it felt oppressive in a way because it didn't give me the space for the complexity of emotion that I was going through. And when the fire happened, gosh, it's just so shocking. I mean, to some of us, particularly someone like me who's a thing person, I love the material world and I love things and I'm a collector of beautiful, handmade, hand wrought antiquities and beauty. And so the loss of all of that and my mother had just passed and all of that change and all of that happening so quickly and not at my choice was a big part of it, that sense of, wow, things can just happen to us that you never in a million years would have thought would. That, of course, it's, what people call an ego death, and it's a rearrangement of all your being. I ended up leaving the country after that. My whole life changed. So, yeah, the silver linings are very gentle for some of us to discover, and some of it is quite radical, and we fall upon it quite hard when we have to. But to your point, when people are coming in and projecting within their sympathy, their fear, and they're not being able to imagine what it would really be like, or they imagine it, but it's not what your individual experience is. Yes, I can understand that it can be somewhat oppressive, but having just had a friend whose home burned down in Altadena, it was hard for me to just sit back and wait until she was ready. I mean, it took her over a month to really respond. And every once in a while, I just send, "I'm thinking about you and I love you." And there are going to be silver linings, I can tell you from my own experience. But it's a lot to go through and a lot of toxicity and a lot of stress and a lot of craziness in the world, as we know. So I want to ask you to segue into your amazing movement spaces that you've been offering for 30 years, which is how you and I met. And particularly since your dance hall burnt down in Altadena, but I know you have other spaces where you help people move through, literally and figuratively, all these human events that we go through. So, what was that like after the fire once you found another space? How can you describe what dance is like as this alchemizing opportunity? I don't know if you'd use those words, but that's always my experience when I'm on your dance floor or any dance floor. It's like I feel like you go in one way and you come out in a very different quality of presence and body experience. Can you describe just what that was like for people and how that shifted or didn't shift people's
Mm.
experience of what they had just been through?
It was so beautiful to have our first gathering, even though it was so painful and tender as well, because we had people who were coming in still in shock. There was a feeling of immediacy for me about the fires, of how do we get people back in their bodies as quickly as we can. Fortunately, my Sunday class was the first one I got a chance to teach after the fires. And I went from being evacuated from my home for a few days, driving directly in to teach from another county, setting up, offering the class, feeling everybody's tenderness and vulnerability, but also the capacity to meet the ground, to meet the body, to come back in, to say, yes, I'm in myself. I can feel myself. I had been sitting for 4 days up there watching and hearing and receiving and being just stuffed with things like longings and heartbreak and tragedies that were much bigger than I could hold on to as a person. And there wasn't any way to really let them come out of me. And for me, the biggest part of dancing is that it's a reciprocity. I receive and I express, I receive and I express. But if I'm watching things and I'm hearing things, if I'm on social media streaming and I'm seeing sight after sight of people's desperate responses to the misery that's happening, and they're all reaching out to me saying, "Oh, what can we do to help? What can we do to help? How are you? Are you okay?" I need to be able to go more than just send a little text message that says, "I'm doing well, I'm evacuated, a lot of loss has happened." I needed to be able to physicalize it. And that's the brilliant body in its essence, is that if we're doing what we're doing in life, then there should be an in and out, receive and like a breath in, a breath out. You can't just keep breathing in all the time. You have to let it go. You can't just eat all the time. You have to let it go. You have to release the stuff that comes in after you've metabolized it, if you can metabolize it. And the movement is the best support for metabolizing it. How many people eat a big dinner and then go off for a walk afterwards so your body can process it? Or else you could sit down on the couch and just be there for the night when your body may not process it in the same way. But getting together with the Tuesday group was an extra series of steps because we had lost a beautiful old property. Farnsworth Park has Davies Hall, and the stones are still there, some of the concrete, but the rest of it really vanished itself. And looking for other places when everyone else was also looking for other places was quite something. So I was coming from my active brain, and I looked and I found a place and negotiated with them, and they just said, "We really want you here." Even though they're a dance studio with choreography and performances, and we're opposite of that. But these people are genuine, generous. They work with nonprofits. Their walls are lined with people who are icons in the field of being able to express their disenfranchisement as beings, people who are AIDS sufferers and survivors, and people who are otherly abled in so many different ways. So their perspective is inclusion, inclusion, inclusion. And I love working with them. I'm really grateful for it. And they really tried to make it affordable and accessible and move their other people around so we could fit in. And I'm continually amazed by that generosity.
Yeah, it sounds like they're getting exposed to something they haven't been used to either, which is great. Can you just describe for people? I'm just sitting here realizing, wait a minute, lots of people don't know what five rhythms is or don't know what soul motion is. And I met Gabrielle Roth 40 years ago. So for me, it's like a homecoming whenever I'm in that environment. And I forget that, oh, lots of people have no idea. So would you describe what it is you do in these dance halls with people of all shapes, sizes, ages, and proclivities?
Well, what I've been doing for a long time comes from the absolute gift of working with Gabrielle Roth, because that's my first practice. And then following those core teachers of Gabrielle's work into the open floor work later, and core teachers like Ben Marti, who segued away from five rhythms directly, although he could always feel its influence, and opened up his body of work, which is soul motion. Working with Yakov and Susanna Darling Khan over and over again, who opened up five rhythms through all of Europe and really amplified the field. It was a real hunger, I think, that spoke through Gabrielle from the world to be felt, to be a voice that we could hear in ourselves. The world is able to speak through us when we dance in this way. It's really easy for us in the culture we've developed and grown and thrived within to a certain degree to pretend that things of the body are less important, that our connection to the earth is something we've sophisticated ourselves away from having to do. And yet there's a primacy to this. The first God we ever had was the earth, the mother, father, God of the earth. And all our dreamings and all of our stories came from being in relationship to the earth. And the way we expressed ourselves and the way we prayed was through dancing. The way we were barefoot on bare earth, moving for tens of thousands of years. We celebrated what we were doing by showing ourselves dancing on cave ceilings and walls. And we showed that we talked to star beings, that we were in relationship to a much greater sense of the world. And we accessed all of it through being embodied. And through being embodied, we knew the cycles of nature, we knew the cycles of ourselves. We became healers if we had illnesses that we recovered from because we journeyed in those places. All of these journeys were embodiment related. And there's a wonderful book by Barbara Ehrenreich called Dancing in the Streets, A History of Collective Joy. And she was famous for writing a number of books, but this one is the one that was really a primal Bible for me, because she catalogs that total history of events and how we were dancing freely and meeting spirit in that way for so long. And it wasn't until the Greeks came along and said, we have a temple here. And if you come in through our temple, you'll be able to dance. If you come in through our temple, we have special ways that you get to relate to the gods. We know what makes the gods happy and what makes the gods sad. And the priests have continued to do that. And as a result of it, there were a lot of changes that happened, but it was always our first way to be in right relationship with the earth. And when we knew that we were doing things in a way that was in balance or imbalanced through that relationship. So I find it really important that it came back. I think that a few pioneers got lucky, people who were dancing their wounds and started to move. And Gabrielle was certainly one of them. And she was somebody who had been very challenged by her relationship through her church that she'd grown up in. And yet she could dance. And then she found herself at the threshold of so much life at Esalen Institute in Big Sur when it was forming. And as a result, she started observing how it was that if she put on certain kinds of music and had people dance, that these certain things would happen. And she mapped, she didn't invent, she mapped what she saw and created a form of practice where you receive from the earth and your fluid body, your alive body, which is really your earth body, in the same way that the curves and the shapes of the mountains and fields and the plains are all the undulations of the earth, sculpted by wind and rain and ice and desert hot. And then the expression of the creative body, the expressive body, the staccato and the giving away body, and the marriage of that influence of the earth and the fire, which are representations of those first two rhythms, into this wonderful outrageousness of release, which is chaos. And that's the water energy of being, into the lightness of being, because you carry so much baggage when they got the earth and the fire and the water and everything comes along and then the wind comes and sweeps it away. And all of a sudden you go, oh, I can rise. I am a light being. I can be expressed. And then that opens you to release so fully that you're into a complete sense of spaciousness and oneness. And you come back into the cosmic alignment that you really are with the vast mystery of everything, where you don't know and you're comfortable there for a while. So I find that beautiful wave, which is what she called her work, which is in everything all around us. I find it constantly informing me. So it stayed at a core aspect of my being, and I continue to offer it to others. And many other bodies of work have sprung up as a result of it, not only people who grew up through Gabrielle's lineage, but much as Rupert Sheldrake's work in the morphogenetic field, once you've opened up a portal, everyone else can come through much, much more quickly. And ecstatic dance was born and rippled out through the world. And people were starting to develop these dances in different places around the world without even knowing that this was happening in California or New York or other places. Australia was a huge bastion of it, but without the five rhythms forms. So it's been beautiful to feel it. And when people come in, whether it's their first time or their thousandth time on the dance floor, there's an invitation for you to let go of what you think you know and come back into just being curious, just being aligned, fascinated, because I don't know what's going to happen in this next moment if I really get out of the way. I don't know where my body's going to take me or what emotional field might be opened up through that experience, because everything is stored. All my experience, all my history is in this outrageous DNA of me. So moving in non-ordinary ways and being curious and exploring may open up a memory stream or a sensation field. And so I may end up coming away having left way more than sweat behind on the dance floor. I may have left behind something that lingered and nagged me for most of my life. So it's also a place where I'm coming to meet myself, but I'm surrounded by other people who are meeting themselves. And we're not doing it with our identities intact. We're not doing it with the story of us. We're just coming and meeting each moment in a presenced way, an engaged way, and an alive way. And we actually become more real and can sometimes let go of the things that have limited us, that have held us back, old attitudes or ideas or grudges, or misbehaviors, or, yeah, stuck places within us, as well as opening up at the same time to other people who are going through that same process. It could just be that you come in and everybody has a great time and we all laugh a little bit at the end or somewhere in the middle. Or it could be that you're opened up and you're flooded with emotions for a while, but you keep moving and somehow or other it changes. So we come to a place of authenticity that's not necessarily as easy to access in an outside everyday dancing world. Yeah. I don't know if that answered it. It's hard to answer.
Beautiful how you answered it. And I'm washed with all kinds of responses from my own experience in it. But it is so different than being in a typical social dance space where people are coming to be sexy, to meet someone, to do something to other people or have something done. There's, social manipulation involved in a way that is so different. Besides the fact that these are, for the most part anyway, sober spaces. There's no alcohol there. It's often during the day. People are wearing really casual clothes, usually barefoot. And as you were just so beautifully describing, it is as much, if not more, for some of us, about moving with ourselves than it is about maybe or maybe not engaging with other bodies who are also exploring themselves in different ways. And Earlier, I was also thinking about this when you were talking about this me-centric way of being. I've been thinking a lot lately about closed circuit and open circuit being, single circuit and two circuit relationship. And this is one of those spaces that actualizes the option and the opportunity to go from this deeply intimate, it could seem like a closed circuit as oneself, but in such an expanded way that even if you're not dancing with another human, as you were describing, there's a sense of engaging in something larger. So the more intensely personal you're experiencing your own sinew and bone and joint and restrictions and heart space and frustrations and all those things and coming into them in such a sensational encounter from moment to moment, the more opportunity there is to feel larger and greater. Because, gosh, every time I come into those spaces, I start in this really closed circuit sort of way, partially because I'm feeling somewhat shut down by being in
Mm.
society and also not being allowed to move and allowed to experience myself in that, there's that word again, intimate a way. And then before I know it, it expands me into something and someone greater. And again, which may or may not involve ever engaging with anyone else, though that can happen too in such amazing and transformational ways as well.
The thing I notice is that because we are authentic, we become in relationship to each other in a way that you have to talk later on to find out what do you do, what do you da da da. But you went to a really deep place without having gone through all those little social
Yeah.
mores to arrive.
Yeah.
Your sense of connection becomes, in a way, tribal in a primal, more primal way, even though what we're doing is coming from our education, our background, our experience, and all the rest of it. For a little while, we put some of it, we take it off with our shoes, maybe at the door. And so community does develop, relationships do develop. There is a sense of bonding. There is no one form that's right for everybody. So I came in through the five rhythms. I expanded into other teachings and other teachers and was inclusive. And in a way, I met Gabrielle Roth and I met Emily Conrad in the same day. I worked with both of them in the same day for the first time. I did an evening with Gabrielle and then went into a weekend with Emily Conrad, which was also involving writing and storytelling, as well as deep, subtle, inquiry based movement processes. The main vibrancy to me about this embodiment process is not being directive as much as being curious, being in wonder, being in awe, being in responsiveness, rather than me deciding, I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to learn how to teach this thing so that everybody can get it. We're all going to start out in this position. We're all going to lift our leg up like this. We're going to lift our arms like this. We're going to move forward like this. Those are great invitations to just get people to move a little bit. But the real curiosity is, how does my shoulder want me to move it right now? Or how does it want to move me? Wow, wait, my shoulder wants to move me. Oh, my elbow wants to move me. Oh, my hips want to move me. We're so controlled and so controlling. And that has separated us from being in right relationship to ourselves, to the point that we find ourselves unable to actually know what's happening in ourselves. We don't know how to ask. We don't know how to listen. We become focused that somebody out there who has a degree, diploma, and years of experience and comes highly recommended is going to know what's going on in me right now more than I am. And so as I've developed this and been within this process, it's come in part because that's the nature of the kind of person that I am anyway. I'm a little bit more of the kid who was a bit of a dreamer who liked to spend time in the top of the tree that she'd climb or have conversations with the wind or the water at the beach, go up to the edge of the shore and just ask questions and find answers there. And that may be a little weird for some folks, but it's the way that my world has been, I don't think I felt lonely very much in my life because there's always been so clear a series of other voices showing up for me if I listen and pay attention. And I feel like that happens to people who are poetic, I guess would be one of the words we use, artistic. I was grateful to be listed as an artist when I was young because it allowed whatever neurodivergent or neurodiverse or neurodifferent way I might be to be included. When I was young, I think I was really excited about the idea that someday, if I was old enough, I would be considered to be eccentric because eccentric sounded much nicer than weird or different or other. Being a fringe person meant that if I did have a way of being recognized, I would have something to offer. But growing up in our society, we have a tendency in the mammalian way to bond and tribe and link. And the processes that schools put us through, which is our second family going to school, can really give us a sense of either being included or othered very swiftly. And most people, even if they're included, feel like they have to keep doing something to keep in the good graces of that group. So embodiment offers us this deeper solace of having somebody who's our best friend who's always going to be here, no matter what. You're always going to have your own self. And in some ways, the way our othered culture has set us up and the learning from the outside rather than from the inside has set us up. And the lack of affirmation when we're small for trusting our bodies has set us to be out of right relationship with who we are. And if we don't really love our bodies, then it's hard for us to love the earth. And it's hard for us to love the other species that are also participating here. The reason I've done this and stayed with it for this long and still feel a little bit the bride going to the wedding every time I'm going to teach a class, the sense of curiosity. Is this going to work? Are we going to have a good experience? Are we all going to gather together and are people going to be open to us? Is the music going to be the music that really inspires something to happen? Are we going to fall in love a little bit more deeply? Is that going to happen? And I've done this thousands of times and I still feel that way pretty much every single time. It's always unique. It's always novel. It's always possibly wonderful. That's really magic. Is it's not me doing it. It's us. It's the we. It's the combined. If it's just me, if I'm the only one who shows up with my music, how am I going to dance to it right now? What moves me right now? And if it's more than one, then it's a lot. And when it's hundreds of people, which it's been many times in my life, then there's a collective field that we all co-create that is uplifting for some and possibly really estranging for others. It's easier in the intimate space to create harmonic relationships most of the time, but also then we can feel a little bit more fixated upon. So it just depends. Some people want to get lost in the crowd and some people want, they need the attention. They need that sense of collaboration in a very intimate way. It's so important to me that people come away inspired to a certain degree, not by me, but by themselves, so that they can continue to relate and appreciate and be curious about that inner relationship. Because if they come in and are triggered or activated in a way that pushes them out of that relationship a little bit further, then I feel like I've really done a disservice. So I feel very protective of the people who are in the space. This is a sane, safe playground for them to come and become themselves. And if there's a violation of that, it could be a violation that obfuscates that person's ability to connect to themselves for an even longer time than it's already been.
Yeah, though I want to say, certainly in my experience, that's been very rare. That doesn't happen often. I was referring more to going out to a nightclub or going
Right.
to a dance party or something like that, that's a very common occurrence. But just want to be clear that for the most part, these spaces are exquisitely safe feeling and they allow for movement and experimentation. And again, that intimacy of exploration and curiosity that we pretty much have to give up when we're around 4 or 5, most of us. And I find this something so special to go into a group where you can literally move any way you want, unless it's like humping on somebody, or that's pretty much the only thing you're not allowed to do. But you can roll, you can jump, you can crawl, you can quasimodo, you can gracefully spin, you can engage with other people if it's consensual. It is completely infinitely available. And this gets into the whole issue of one, inhibition or lack thereof, which is a fascinating topic I wanted to talk to you about. But also, it involves something you were saying before, which is that our left brains can think we're the ones running the show and that we're the ones going out and saying, okay, now I'm going to hike my shoulder and I'm going to pop my boobs and I'm going to, like you would in a dance hall potentially, where you're going to have this certain way of moving your hips in order to have a certain effect. Or you're going to go into a ballet class and you're going to use this certain cultural choreography to be a part of that aesthetic and that social norm and that way of being. So to go into a space where it's not about any specific choreography, any specific discipline, any specific culture, but to see if you can, at least this is what I do every class, is I'm always interested in what's a way I haven't ever moved before, or at least since I
Mm.
was 4 years old. As you were saying, how does myself as a body want to move rather than my mind just thinking it's the one in control and it's the directive one, it's the one making things happen and choosing this gesture or that movement. So it is going into that relational way of being, not just with self, but with all that potentially is, and certainly with flesh and bone and gravity and all of those amazing things that we can so easily ignore. So there's a lot of that in there, but I would love for you to talk about inhibition specifically and
Mm.
how that happens and what you've observed over these decades, the extent to which people are able to uninhibit over a period of time when they are supported in an environment that invites that.
Oh, it's an interesting concept. I have less inhibitions than a lot of other people do. I think it's part of the fringe dwelling part in some ways. And then I have probably just as many in other directions. It just depends on where we feel more vulnerable, each of us. But I have witnessed a lot of transformation because it does foster a quality of community. And there is a sense of relationship that develops. People fall in love on the dance floor, even though I don't want them to try to other their loving. I want it to be, I love myself first. And hopefully, then when you've got enough of it, there's more to share. Relationships are going to happen because you're feeling fabulous and everybody around you is feeling fabulous. And it's a sensuous wondrousness, this body, fabulously filled with opportunities for engagement. And when somebody's holding or sweating with your body in the same way, you're moving together, you just discover chemistries and sparks and things. That does happen. We have babies that were born and grown up. We have small inner children who have grown and fortified themselves. We have people who come in very damaged and challenged by life and who come out feeling empowered and strengthened and nourished. And there's a holism to this. We're not doing this in isolation. When I start opening the portals of me to meet myself in a fulfilling, curious, and wondering way, then other things come in to support that. There is a oneness and there is a unified field of awareness if you start to notice it. So the inhibitions can be validated away. I'm very lucky. In my life, I have made my living doing things I love doing. I didn't grow to love doing them. I love doing them. And then they became the way I make my living. So that's not often that happens for people. And there are things with high thresholds for me personally. So I've never felt like I've come to complete mastery of them. I spent years making my living as a visual artist, which in a way is quite isolated. It's very personal. And the word intimacy keeps coming up. And I would paint and then I would have a show. And the show was like the introvert stepping out onto the stage. Everybody all of a sudden it was really challenging. So the inhibition of that, I would literally get tunnel vision. I would get tunnel vision when I had to stand in front of a group of people. People would want me to speak because I was an artist and they recommended me and responded and I was successful. And the same thing would come and I'd realize that I just didn't know how to respond to that. I was suddenly going from the intro to the outro and it was challenging. So I ended up doing improv for a while. I started doing improv work to get to a place of comfort within myself and did embodied improvisational work with one of the best teachers I've ever worked with, Susan Harper, who I recommend highly. Her continuum montage work is fabulous. She works with emotions, she works with the subtle fields. She works with so many things, but I did years of improv work with her in a collective space. And that was really brilliant. So I would bring aspects of that into my teaching as well. I don't have a single form that I'm teaching. I can't. I'm not good at segmentations and boxing myself up into this is my continuum box, and this is my 5 rhythm box, and this is my improv box. All mushed together in a very feminine way. But inhibitions, I think, are really most centered around our own discomfort with the ideas that we're holding of how we are seen by others. And if I am able, in my introvert, quiet, little shy inner person way, to meet somebody else in a conversation, it's because I'm curious about them. I'm a little fascinated. And if I'm doing that dance of curiosity and fascination or expressing something that I'm passionate about, then all those things go away. Like the person who's stuttering, who doesn't stutter when they sing, because there's a deeper source that's guiding us than that little part of the brain that wants to direct everything. And that little part of the brain has decided somewhere along the line that I'm a safer person if I don't express like this, or if I'm not seen like this. And so once I become fascinated by how this body is moving me or how this beauty is moving me, because it's all about beauty in the end, isn't it? It's all about beauty. This is beautiful and beauty is fascinating. And that's the quest in a way to find that beautiful moment, that loveliness, that feeling space. And beauty isn't always pretty by any stretch. Beauty is raucous and outrageous sometimes. It's horrific at times, but it's beautiful in the essence of itself. So in that pursuit of beauty and that quest for beauty or that appreciation for beauty or that admiration for beauty that's happening in this alive moment, then we somehow or other forget the little book guy up in the tower who's trying to control everything and shutting down the resources that we have so much access to. Because we're limitless. We have phenomenal aptitude. We are fields. We are fields. If I'm coming with you, it's you and me in our field. Even though you are in Scotland, I am in Los Angeles, we are in the same field. Or if you're not in Scotland, if you're somewhere else, it doesn't matter. I discovered from teaching my classes on Zoom that this thing that I thought was happening in a room was actually happening just in a field that was global. I went from having to try to create a unified field inside of a space with a group of people who didn't know each other into including people who were in faraway places and discovered that they were getting it too. There's nothing connecting them, absolutely physically nothing, just a field. And so the opportunity to grow in levels that I would not have ever imagined through all the difficulties of technology, I will say. But the magic of technology allowed us to connect and for us to have simultaneous experiences faster than the speed of light, okay? Faster than light. The field's that quick. It's that in the now. It's that immediate that we feel each other. And so magic keeps happening. And hopefully, it at least calms that part of the guidance protection system for a little while, that we can discover some of our own magnificence just for a while. And those glimmerings, oh my God, they can be so tantalizing and exhilarating and exciting that we want to do more of them. And they can also be quite a bit for people who are feeling tender or vulnerable or still carrying a lot of wounds. And it can set them back and they can say, wow, that was way too wonderful. I'll have to wait a while to be ready to have more wonderful like that.
Yeah, I wanted to add something else about inhibition because you're describing inhibition within a social context. I just want to add to it one of the effects of that, one of the consequences of that is that many of us can actually lose the availability or the fluency
Mm.
of body consciousness or body freedom or the full capacity of our bodies to uninhibit as a moving opportunity. Meaning that if you're so not used to using your body and being your body in all kinds of different ways because we were taught to only sit at our desks or move in a very perambulating kind of way, then the neural pathways get inhibited. They get unconscious. They're not alive. They're not awake. They don't feel to be available. There's a sense of amnesia, even. So, the movement that can happen when you're allowing it in a space like yours, where you can actually move into places that have been so inhibited physiologically, sensationally, neurologically, I just wanted to add is a whole other opportunity of coming out of inhibition into a sense of freedom that is detailed in its sensational consciousness.
And through the layers and this resources that you've explored, and you've done it so beautifully, there's such subtle, wonderful languagings that can come through and awarenesses. The more refined your system is, and the more knowledgeable you are, the more layered and truly elegant the awarenesses are inside of the body. Remember having my very first massage and going, oh, this is wonderful. I didn't know anybody could love me that much because it didn't feel like there was anything they were out for. It was a gift. It was just love being poured through all of my tissues, and it woke parts of me up in ways that hadn't been. And so it was really wonderful to go in and start to learn about bodies and train and work in massage and work with the tissues, and then really give satisfying and meaningful experiences through touch and open up a field of awareness of muscles and tendons and ligaments and connective tissues and pressure points and stimulations and parasympathetic nervous systems and all these lovely things that suddenly seemed to show up that I wasn't aware of, that I was just blindly feeling. And the more educated I became, the more aware I became, the more access I started having. I'm then going into doing cranial work and the subtle field and recognizing that, wow, I was wandering around in this magnificent forest before, just in awe of the trees and the growing things and what was blooming. And then I went back in and started doing cranial work. And it was like, I was sitting in the same forest with the same wonder and awe, but all of a sudden there are these like little emerging fairies and elves and creatures coming out and informing me of a subtle world that I did not know was there before. I was just approaching it with love and appreciation. But now, look at this. It's outrageous. There's so much here. And so the subtler and subtler and subtler the fields become, the more eloquent the body becomes and communication becomes. Yes, I love what you shared because that's been a primary aspect of my own work as a movement person, like why the branding becomes less important to me or the directiveness of being a facilitator is something I struggle with because my intention is to invite and include. So whatever your unique experience is going to be, that's welcomed in here. Whatever you're going to be meeting is really elementally important for your reason to be here. So it's not my agenda. It's how do I include all the wisdom that your body is willing to share with you in this experience. So the tone or the tenor of it's going to change. I don't come in with a prepackaged idea of exactly what I'm going to teach you. I can't because I don't know where you are, and it's probably going to change from moment to moment. So I have to come in with thousands of possibilities, and then I have to let them rise up and share them. And I try to be less didactic and more just inclusive and poetic in the way the information comes through me so that, like a poet, you're really editing all the time. Do I need to say that? Is that important? Who needs to hear that? Oh, that just came through. Oh, I have to play this song. And then invariably at the end of the session, someone will say, how did you know to play that song? Or when you said this, it opened up all this awareness for me. So there's a harmony in the way we're all meeting each other. And the more I can get out of the way and facilitate, make ease happen in the fluid nature of our connection, the more delicious this experience is going to be for a greater number of people.
So, a couple other things I want to ask you about. The first one is you've said many times, as most people say, you talk about the relationship to the body, or you were talking about the elbow is moving me, as if the elbow is not me, as if there's a duality between the body and who me is. At least in English, that's what the language is that most of us are used to using. And it very much affects how we perceive being a body and being who we are. So I just wondered if you wanted to say anything about that, because I'm tracking that use of language all the time.
And you do it better than anyone I've met because you've really been studying it. And having listened to Brilliant Body podcast, when we first asked me, I was like, let me see if I could get my languaging in. And I realized that since most people come from that other place, in order to reach them so they can relate, I have to start there. I think for me, adding like the ing, verbalizing rather than nouning things, inclusivity of feeling formings is really important. Yet, in speaking about it to the average person, when I'm starting out, I find that I have to say, these elbows of mine, like I own them, as though they weren't leading me all the time. These fingerings of mine that can do so many elegant and exquisite little things, nuanced and subtle, they have been informing me forever. And if I had no eyes, they would guide me everywhere, as would all the other perceptive aspects of me, because I am so layered. I think that the Heart Math Institute work, opening up the awareness that our hearts, if you take blood out of my body and you put the blood in a dish somewhere else, that if I have an emotional response to something, the blood that's in that dish somewhere else is going to respond in exactly the same moment that I'm responding inside of my body. That this is so magic and magically alive, this wholeness that we are, that's integrated in a vastness that we're all part of. So the bigger the density of humans around me, the greater their shock and awe about something, the harder it is for me to metabolize myself in a way that's authentic to my actual needs. I have to find ways to screen and isolate because everything is being felt and included. The relationship I have in this meeting of embodied me is so continually perceptive that through the process of learning and engaging and working with others in a collective field, have learned how to turn things into porous and less porous, inclusive and a little more privatized. And then I take more time for myself in harmony in my space because I actually really love it and revel in it and do as little as possible for extended amounts of time so that I can fully engage with everything else through this beingness. Yeah. I don't know. Was that an answer?
It was many answers. I'm going to ask you about one other thing, which when you were talking about the community over 30 years and the transformations that have happened in that time with these people. Some of them only come once, some of them have come 1,000 times, as you said. And one of the things that I noticed since I only come to town now a couple times a year, I used to be there every week and now I'm there a handful of times a year. And the thing that keeps striking me every time I come is how we've all aged. Like we all used to be versions of ourselves in our 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50. Now we're in our 50s, 60s, 70s. Some are in their 80s. And watching all the transformations of bodies getting bigger, shrinking, getting ill, getting healthier, changing in all these different ways as we're all getting old. And so I just wondered what your perspective is on the aging
Mm,
aspect of this longevity you've had as a dance holder of magical space.
you know, that very old joke. It's like aging is better than the alternative, right? If we are enjoying being in this living space, then being fascinated and curious about how I'm transforming with each year. So, what I am, I love being, even as it gets older, because I appreciate everything that came through it. But if I want to go into the more studied way, I dance furiously and fabulously. I still can do almost everything, but I listen and pay attention. I don't bounce as much as I used to. My joints told me that's less desirable for them. My body loves to be able to be exercised in ways that it expands and opens and sometimes recoils and retreats. I do that. From what I've read, dance is the best way to stay young in every possible way. It's the best way for your brain to stay young, for all thought processes to be better, for all relational pieces and processes inside of the body to continue to work at their most optimal. The main thing that I work with, this is so important to say, is intention. Intention is the most powerful thing on earth. I think it's the nature of everything that exists is intention in some form. So I'm setting clear intentions for myself to be healthy, to be well met, to move in harmony with myself, to move for the greatest amount of life I can. So waking up in that love fest in the morning in my body is also setting clear intentions for my day to be in harmony and for my health and well-being for all of me and to affirm those throughout the day. So I'm in right relationship with what I'm moving into, and I'm in gratitude with what I'm moving into. And I'm in gratitude for the education my body gives me, and I'm in gratitude for the weird things that happen because who knows what they're going to
Yeah.
teach me. So those things are essential. And that feels to me, because I didn't start doing that until I was in my 40s, the wisdom piece, the wisdom cycle, because I got those from teachers who were far older than I was at the time. Baba Olatunji gave me the beautiful line, may only that of the greatest and highest good come to me today, which I use every morning. And working with Anna Halprin in her 90s, in her upper 90s, I was so in awe of her capacity to bring all of this together. So good. And she would work in the same way. If there were 3 people in the room, she would work with them as though they were the most important creatures on earth, and the same way that she would work with a large group. To me, the wisdom is in being in continual presence, surprise, appreciation, gratitude, wonder, curiosity, and intention for the greatest good for all, for myself inside of that.
I'm going to just ask you my last 2 questions I ask everybody.
Yes.
So how do you define embodiment?
Oh, the meeting of attention, which is our most precious gift that we can give, to the liquid self.
Beautiful. Wow, so beautiful. And what do you enjoy most about being your body? I feel like that's what you've been describing for over an hour now. You really enjoy being a body and being your body, but anything else you want to add about that enjoyment?
Oh, wow. I've had so much good. I've had so much loving and so much experience. I've been so delicious in this body. Uh, and I've also had things I get to navigate that keep me on my toes, literally on my toes, like toenail things, fungus and foot things and fractured hips and cancers and things like that have come along to keep me awake, Being in a body is an opportunity to see every day as unique, every moment is filled with possibilities. So I could be walking right now and feeling great, and then I could step wrong, and then I'd have to go into a whole new relationship with a part of my body that I hadn't had before. So each new opportunity for meeting myself out of my most harmonious alignment opens up a whole well of compassion and connection, collaboration.
You're amazing. You've contributed so much to so many of us, and I just want to really thank you for that and for being in my life. I love you very much, and thank you for this conversation. It was really beautiful.
And thank you, and I love you, and I'm so grateful for you. And I can hardly wait for our next connection. May it thrive.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in and sticking around until the end. We hope that means you enjoyed today's episode. If so, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could share it with a friend, leave a review, and rate the podcast. It really helps us reach more people in our mission to expand the global understanding and experience of body brilliance. Our events and content remain free in our effort to expand the meaning of intelligence, but we do gratefully accept donations to help with our podcast's operating costs. You can find the link in our show notes. And while you're there, check out all the resources, gifts, definitions, photos, events, and tools we've included to help you dive deeper into today's topics. You can also visit www.thebrilliantbodypodcast.com for a complete list of episodes, body meditations, and many more brilliant things. And if you're curious to explore more ways I help bodies to reclaim their brilliance, visit my website at www.alimezey.com. And lastly, a huge hearty thank you to my co-producer and editor, the brilliant Florence Popoff, and to Blair, Mr. One-Man Band Wilson, for our theme music. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, stay loving, and reclaim your brilliant body.